Marks. This thing happened this week where we did the clap for the NHS carers, like I guess many of you did, and what was remarkable to me about that was the mood of the nation. If you remember back 10 weeks ago when we all ran outside our front doors and we clapped and we cheered and we hollered and there were fireworks that were released and people had played music on their doorsteps, and then something happened about 10 days ago where the mood changed, which is just incredible to me because we're all behind different front doors anyway, but the mood changed and it was kind of like we felt enough. We're kind of done with this. And so I don't know what it was like on your street, but last night on ours we were clapping the NHS, and if you're watching this and you're a carer in a care home or you work for the NHS, we still clap you, we still think you're fantastic, and we're still so grateful for you, and we're still praying for you. That doesn't stop, even though the official clap might have stopped. But last night we clapped, but we also waved at other people on the street who were out clapping as this kind of marker of solidarity, if you like. There's a couple of other things that I've observed in the general mood of maybe myself, maybe the rest of us in St. Mark's as we've chatted, maybe the country at large. And so if it's okay with you, I wanted to interrupt for 1 week our series on our conversation on putting in a trellis, putting in a structure for growth in a life. And I want to go off piece. This is completely unscripted, but I want to speak into that mood for a moment if I can, because I wonder and hope and pray that it would be helpful to you. Have you noticed that you are sadder about things than you have been for a while? You're more sad. Are you, maybe even as I say that, maybe that allows you to begin to put some words on the feelings that have just been at play in you for a little while. Are you sad about the things that you are missing, the people that you haven't seen, the opportunities that have come and gone without you able to take part in them, the holidays that you've missed, the work colleagues that you haven't seen, the schoolmates that you haven't seen, the friends that you haven't seen except on Zoom? Are you sad about the fact you haven't been to your favourite coffee shop or park or museum, or the holiday you were supposed to go on was cancelled? Are you sad about the health of a loved one, maybe the death of somebody close to you? Is there a sadness in you? I want to return to that in a moment, because I think many of us have this sadness. Maybe the sadness is this kind of forward projecting, preemptive sadness as we begin to wrap our heads around what life might well look like now, but in the future. And well, they might start playing football again, but it won't be with a crowd. And will I ever get to go to a football match? Will I ever get to go to the theatre? Will I have to sit 2 seats away from somebody else all the time in the cinema from now on? Will I be on tenterhooks waiting for a text message from somebody saying you have to self-isolate for 2 days because somebody on the same street as you that you might walk past has got the virus? Like, is there a sadness in you about all this stuff? Is there a madness? Is there an anger? Are you mad about some stuff? As you've observed in the news feed, the politicians or civil servants in this country or others, is there a madness as you see some injustices unfolding? Are you just seething inside that yet another innocent black man has been killed in America for no other reason than he's black? Are you mad about the fact that your voice, which is trumpeted as one of the greatest assets that you own in a democracy, does not seem to count, and you can't seem to get anybody to listen to how you feel? Is there a madness about how you think the government is handling something or not handling something, or the press? Is there this madness in you? Do you know, the psychologists and psychiatrists have been writing for years about this underlying, consistent, persistent anxiety that so many of us have recognized or been feeling. And they're beginning to say now that it's anger as well. And there's this injustice which we used to hear about and question whether it's true, but now you see it. It's done live on the news right in front of you. There's this book right in the center of the Bible. It's this collection of poems, it's this collection of songs, it's this collection of thoughts. Often it's just this emotional splurge on the part of the authors. Sometimes that's King David, sometimes it's other people, sometimes it's other people pretending to be him, sometimes it's just other people that we don't know. And if you read these Psalms, and these Psalms have become like this through, ever since they were first written down, and before, they were this cultural expression of faith, of worship, of being able to communicate the stuff going on inside. Jesus quoted these Psalms. The crowd that welcome him into Jerusalem on a donkey, they quote these Psalms. They're just kind of culturally known and familiar songs to people who followed God throughout the ages. And they sit right in the center of the Bible. If you've ever tried to read them, you'll know that actually in 2020, if we're honest, they're difficult to read, because there are moments that sound like stuff a Christian should say, like, the earth is the Lord, is yours, O God, and everything in it you have created well. And before I go to bed at night, I think about your laws, O God, and I find peace in them. And the first thing I think about when I wake up, O God, is your goodness, and I find goodness for myself in you always, and you lead me beside quiet streams, and you make me lie down in green pastures, and you give rest to my soul. And all that sounds well and good until kind of usually a little bit into the psalm, it will just change tack completely. And suddenly the psalmist gets angry, and they'll say stuff like, God, why do you let my enemies pursue me? Why is that king still on the throne when I would be a much better king than them? Why don't you just wipe my enemies from the face of the earth, O God? I wish they were but just a distant memory, a mist on the landscape of history to you. Come on, God, where are you? Why is it that person over there, who doesn't give two hoots about what is right or just, and who abuses all kinds of systems and manipulates people around them, how is it that they keep getting on in the world and people look up to them and give them promotion and make them celebrities, and I'm trying so desperately to do what is right and I'm getting nowhere, I'm paddling upstream, and have you forgotten me? Where are you, oh God? And if you've ever read those, you think, good grief, is this guy all right? Does somebody need to get him some help? A glass of water, if nothing else. But I wonder if, I don't know whether it's because I'm English and polite, whether it's because I've been born into a culture of reserve, whether it's because I'm a bloke who's not very good with my emotions. I don't know what it is. But I noticed that I don't take that level of sadness, that level of madness, or if I'm honest, that level of gladness that sometimes the psalmist talks about. I don't take those very often to God in prayer. What I say to God in prayer is, if I'm honest between you and me, don't tell anybody this, quite mundane. And I talk about, would you just bless my kids and protect my family, and if we could have enough money to have food, then that'd be great, and thanks that the sun came up, that was brilliant, and be kind to my family and protect them. And I run out of steam not long after that. And I wonder if because of that, because I don't take the depth of me and present them bravely and courageously to God, I have this consequentially lukewarm, insipid, tepid relationship with Jesus that doesn't involve the depths of me, the things that I most care about. And so how could I ever get in return the things that are the depths of him? He doesn't have to respond in a deep and profound way to my thanks for the sun coming up. It was going to happen anyway. And the pedants amongst us will point out that the sun doesn't actually come up. Tim Keller writes about this in the Psalms, which he calls a medicine cabinet for your soul. He says you find all walks of life, every situation and circumstance that you could ever find yourself in is represented in the Psalms. He says, in it you also find a God who's created not in your image, which, let's be honest, is usually what we do. God is usually just a bigger version of me, because that's how I think he should be. But actually, when we encounter God in the Psalms, we meet somebody who is much bigger than that, much angrier than that, much more just than that, much more loving than I am prepared to be, much more gracious, much more mysterious, much more powerful, and way different to how I expect him to be, but always able to intervene and to comfort and to grace me. There's a theologian called Walter Brueggemann, and he talks about the Psalms and how often there is this pattern. He says often there's a pattern of orientation where the author will write something and they'll say, God, I'm looking at you. My eyes are fixed on you. You are good. What you have done is great. Thank you. But then there'll be this moment of disorientation, disfragmentation, where everything gets jumbled up and the psalmist finds themselves in the back of a cave, hiding from people that want to kill them with swords and wishing that God would just smite all their enemies from the earth. And it's disrupting to their faith and disrupting to their understanding of God, but it's very, very real. And so there's this disorientation. And that gets talked about often in the middle of the Psalms. But then, so often there is this reorientation. In the light of everything I first declared to be true and knew to be right about you, God, and in the light of everything that I feel at the moment, everything I'm sad about at the moment, everything that I'm mad about at the moment, and the stuff that I'm glad about at the moment, I'm going to swing back and reorientate myself honestly with this deep level of authenticity and integrity, and I'm going to bring it all to you and redeclare worship. God, despite the fact that this is deeply unfair, I still fix my eyes on you, and I demand that you do something about that because of your goodness. That is a biblical pattern of prayer. And I think it results in a deeper relationship, a more fulfilling, a closer, a more gracious relationship with the Master than when I just peter out into predictable, polite stuff. So my encouragement for you this week is maybe you need to make a list. Maybe you need to carve out some time, grab a piece of paper and a pen and figure out the things that you're sad about. And spend some time mourning those with Jesus. Maybe you need to do the same with other people. Maybe you need to do the same with the stuff that you're most mad about and angry about and feel unable to do anything about. And there is a powerlessness in you which causes frustration and pain. And you need to work out some of those things. And then you need to direct those Godwards. Because a soul that only ever vents on Twitter never discovers healing. A soul that only ever grieves internally never discovers healing. A soul that gifts the gladness and the dancing and the joy, the madness and the anger and the frustration and the questions, the sadness and the grieving and the mourning. A soul that gifts all of those things towards God, that gifts the depths of me to Him, can receive the goodness and the deep, deep peace and grace of Him in reply. Maybe that is what we need to do this week.